It's late October and the door that lets the light in is about to close. The clocks go back. It's suddenly dark at 5 o'clock. Here in Glastonbury, they celebrate the Druidic festival of Samhain, the dying of the year. It's the time when the barrier between the dark and the light is at its thinnest, and they chant ancient rites that help us communicate with the dead. In medieval times, there was a mass slaughter of animals as they couldn't all be kept over the winter as the grass dies back, and it's still a traditional time of year for slaughtering. Built into my self-sufficiency project was a plan to kill Buster, a Hereford heifer who was born here at the beginning of last year. I've been planning and worrying about it for weeks. So I've got a big cattle box which I could have taken Buster down to the abattoir in. She would have been on her own. It would have been a horrible rattly journey. She's never been off the farm. She was born here. And I thought that was unduly stressful. So I arranged for her to be killed here under the supervision of a specially licensed vet, which is what we did the week before last. It was pretty traumatic. First thing in the morning, very, very early. Didn't want to film it, didn't want anyone here, didn't want you here. We had a big telehandler, and the vet, Buster was stunned and then hoisted up, bled out into a great big bucket, and then we loaded her into the back of the trailer dead and took her down to the abattoir where they can then deal with her. She had to be down there in less than an hour. So it was a really rushing around, stressful thing. I think I've got a rule with meat, which is I will stop eating meat when I stop caring about killing animals, when I stop feeling very, very uncomfortable about it. When we kill Christmas poultry, whenever I've got to do anything like that, I hate doing it. I really mind having to do it. And that makes me feel quite comfortable ultimately about doing it. And I think as soon as I don't care, then it's time for me to stop eating meat, really. I'm a reasonably good butcher, but I have so many other things to do that I've enlisted the help of a mate. So I'm at my friend Paul's butcher shop just down the road from me. I've been to the abattoir, picked up what is traditionally called a body of beef. We've got it out here, into the shop, and now we're going to start butchering. So this is our heifer that we had killed. Yep. The bull that we used was from the 1960s. It was some of the oldest frozen frozen semen ever. So I was aiming for something really interesting and something really old-fashioned. And we've kind of got it, haven't we?
I think you have. Looking at the structure of the animal and the fat conformation, that is pretty much how an animal would have been produced
Back
years ago. Yeah. Nowadays, a lot less fat conformation. It's not always grass-fed. Like you said, this was a grass-fed animal, just completely on grass-fed. Yeah. A lot of cake's being used these days to let it grow, muscle definition.
Not had one tiny nugget of cake.
No, that's it.
Grass and milk off her dam. That's
fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, the natural way of growing.
Yeah.
Cool. So we go around there, we find the joint, and then round the elbow. And you should be in a position there. If you push down, that will break straight off. And then we cut round that bone. We just want to sell certain cuts these days, but a good butcher should be able to sell everything.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the key factor.
Do you find yourself, would it be hard if you just bought bodies of beef to make a living?
I think for a butcher shop, yes, it does make it hard, because years ago the butcher used to sell stuff to the customer. Now it's changed very differently, that the customer comes in and tells the butcher what they want.
Right.
And it's a different way of thinking. Years ago, the lady or the gentleman come into the shop and sort of said, oh, what we got? We'd have massive displays, and the butcher would say, oh, I think you need one of them for this weekend. Right. And they would think about making it last a few days, like what you're doing, really. Right. So it's a case of buying a big bulky piece of meat to turn it into a Sunday roast, to turn it into a casserole the next day, maybe a shepherd or a cottage pie, and so on and so forth. So you've got one big piece of meat that's lasts you over half a week.
Yeah.
So that's the way I think that food becomes affordable to people. We talk about food not being affordable. I don't believe it's not affordable. It's just the way we eat it isn't affordable.
Paul is convinced that food, particularly meat, can be more sustainable. We're both really singing the same song. I want more small local farms, and he thinks the meat business has a better future and be better value if more people buy locally sourced meat from a small independent business.
It's not just about profiteering out of it, it's about using whole animals. So for me it's important, even when we're getting new customers, it's just not a case of getting a customer, it's finding the fact that you need to find a customer that's be suited to your business. So bones is a big thing and fat is a big thing that we have a wastage. I'm a big against wastage. So if we can find ways of utilising the bones, way of utilising the fats and everything else, then we're doing that animal justice. So it's just not a case of putting the animal into the food chain, it's about making sure you're utilising that animal as best as you possibly can so it can go in the food chain and be developed in different areas and make sure that we're not wasting anything, which in a way is a sustainable way of butchery. There's more bigger companies now than what there is smaller companies. So if we scratch back from the bigger companies and have a little bit more independent companies, maybe the food game might be a little bit more sustainable.
So this is a whole forequarter. A lot of food, isn't it?
There's lots of food.
This might look like a lot of meat, but it'll be a long time before I have another bullock to kill, and so it's got to last. We're trying to make this last 2 years, so we don't buy any beef at all over as a family for 2 years. And that's why we've got these great big joints, because we want to have big Sunday lunch, have shepherd's pie on Monday, soup on Tuesday. Do you want something to really make it last? The aim being to eat less meat, but in a much more sustainable way.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think that's what they do.
Yeah.
By using bigger joints, you can make it more sustainable, rather than using a different product every day of the week.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. I'm going to have to really get this freezer cranked.
So you've got to remember, this is only one quarter of the animal.
Yeah.
So theoretically,
and there's more
if
meat
you look
on the
at
hind
this
quarters
to last
for
2 years, this has potentially got to last you for 6 months.
Yeah.
So if you take a week of product,
how many Sundays are there in 6 months? 20.
Well, if you think 26.
26.
The average, wouldn't it?
So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's nearly there, isn't it?
Yeah. With your few other bits and stuff like that, you've got some mince coming.
Plus I've got some pigs, got a few turkeys,
that's it.
the odd chicken.
Yeah, it's not as though you're going to be eating beef every day of the week.
No.
So you've got to make this last for 6 months.
Yeah, I think that's doable.
Easy.
Well, this is the great big clear out of all of the last of the very end of the summer crops. Tomatoes and delicate stuff, chilies, French beans, and we're just clearing them all out at the end of October and making way for winter salads, early stuff, getting ready. Most of the beans will be just dried for using as chili, as you'd use chili beans, and I've been experimenting, watch this space, with making baked beans with all my tomatoes and all the rest of it. Everything must go, and if it's red it's being turned into baked beans, and if it's green it's being turned into chutney. Whoa, the biggest tomato in the world. Aren't they great?
How do you think it's going to taste?
Really nice.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Not overripe?
No. That's going to be stunning. What I might do is hollow it out and put some mincemeat in it and roast it.
There we go.
I learnt a new trick to get late tomatoes to ripen in the polytunnel from Charles Dowding, my near neighbour, just up the road. And he says all you do to get them to ripen at this time of year is don't water them. So these haven't been watered for a month, and to be honest, there's not many green tomatoes left. In a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, this will be full of little tiny winter salads. The main thing it needs is a really good water, because I haven't been watering the tomatoes for a month to try and get them to really ripen quickly. So yeah, it's a changeover time. I find food self-sufficiency quite a lonely occupation, and so having mates over to help is great, even if it does mean being teased.
Oh, Max, you look really almost elf or pervy. I'm not sure which.
Mrs. Max says I look like a condom.
That's brilliant. But didn't she find you attractive?
She doesn't find me attractive at the best of times, let alone dressed like this. Trace some of my cheese.
Look at that. That is cool. How old is this?
8 months.
God, it's lush.
My friend Rose is a winner of national and international cheese awards, and she's going to show me how to make cheeses that are ready in a matter of days rather than having to wait months for them to mature. What I need to be able to do is I need to be able to make cheese a bit quicker because I'm running out of cheddar.
Yes.
And while I can carry on making cheddar and leave it to store, because it's okay after about 4 months or so, what I need to do is to make cheeses that I can turn around a bit faster.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend?
So I recommend you make a soft, ripened lactic cheese.
Right. Has it got a name like what? Like a...
Soft, ripened lactic cheese.
Yes, okay. That's what it's called. That's 8 litres.
Okay, put the milk on. But you don't want it hotter than 21 degrees. So it's just rehydrating, which makes it, for me, it's easier when you then put it in, it distributes better, in my personal opinion. Other people do not, they go straight in. This is just the word according to Rose, who has no idea. You now just start up, so just, and then you just need to stir it in for about a minute. But also I would put the whole container, because there's going to be bits of starter left at the bottom. If you look at it, you can see. I think
Like that, or just leave it in
well,
there?
You can see there.
Yes.
That's some penicillin, so maybe scoop it with your ladle or something. So scoop it. Whatever's there, just to make sure you've got it all off. Brilliant. So just stir that for about a minute. Right. 0.88 of rennet. Stir that in.
We're adding lactic acid cultures, penicillin, which creates the rind, and a vegetarian rennet, which makes the curds set firm overnight.
Rose, what was your secret to making great quality cheese?
Well, you think it's being in charge of the whole process, don't you?
Totally. So it's the quality,
Your own,
it's the
your
quality
own,
of the milk.
Your own milk.
So you know what's gone into the animal to produce the milk. It's the
And
fact
what it's
that
been fed.
exactly what it's been fed. You've milked it. You know every lump and bump on those teats.
Yeah.
Whereas in a bigger facility, you might buy in the milk, so it might have gone through several people's hands before it gets to you. You have absolutely no idea if any of them were poorly, not poorly. You've no clue at all. But also, when you're dealing in small batches, you're again completely in touch with your curds. Whereas if you're in a huge kind of factory facility, you know, I know when I smell my curds, I know that's a good cheese.
Yeah.
You just smell it and it's like, that's a good cheese.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do people think about what Max is doing?
They think he's mental. But no, they do. But that was true before. But
Thank you so much.
no, but there is huge respect for what you're doing. Huge respect. And rightly, it's amazing.
Well, what's the reason why I'm so fascinated by this process is because it's so normal to do what I'm doing. It's so normal. A quarter of the world's food is produced on farms smaller than mine. The norm out there in the world is for a family to produce their own food. That's normal.
Yeah, no, but not like what you're doing, though, Max. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. No, because people
Yeah.
they don't have vineyards.
Forget about the vineyard for a second. A quarter of the world's food is
Okay.
produced on farms smaller than mine.
Yeah, I get that.
And so
I get
your
that.
normal bloke
Yeah, okay, I
out
get
there
that.
in the world
Yeah, I
is a
get that.
subsistence farmer producing their own food.
with a life expectancy till they're 50.
Well, but that's partly to do with unstable government and lack of healthcare and everything.
No, I get what you're
it's
saying.
not to do with their
Max.
diet.
I do get what you're saying.
And
I really massively respect it. I do, because I like the practices that you've got and the philosophy you've got to go with it. That's what I really like.
Autumn is a time of plenty on a small farm, but as the daylight fades away, everything stops growing. If I haven't got it now, I'll have to do without. I've got a nagging feeling that I'm not going to have enough staples or enough veg. October, well, that's been the easy bit.